A man named Theodor Herzl, a journalist from Austria, Jewish, witnesses the trial of a Jewish man falsely accused in France. And he sees, turn of the century, he hears the people around this trial, the crowd shouting, "Death to the Jews," and he comes to the conclusion, there's no hope for us out here. The only hope for the Jewish people is we go back to our land and we build a nation for ourselves, and then there'll be no more anti-Semitism. There'll be no more hatred for the Jewish people to deal with. So what happens? They come back to Israel, and guess what happens? It gets worse. Now, anti-Semitism is often masked with the words anti-Zionism. Same animal, same thing. Anti-Israel, same thing. When Martin Luther King heard a black man of the American left denouncing Zionists, Martin Luther King said, when people criticize Zionism, they mean Jews. You're talking anti-Semitism. That's a mask. Anti-Semitism, in many cases, they exchange the word for Jew, they call Zionist. That means someone who is returning to Israel, but it's the same thing in the end. And instead of speaking of the international Jewish conspiracy, which is the typical thing of anti-Semitism, they speak of the international Zionist conspiracy. Anti-Semitic hatred came from the far right, and it came from the far left. It was the one thing that they could all agree on. In America, you have white Aryan literature borrowed from anti-Semitic Arab literature, which borrowed from medieval literature. In World War II, many Arab leaders sided with Hitler. After the war, the Arabic world was filled with anti-Semitic literature. They took it all together and was quoted by Arab leaders. In 1973, the leader of Saudi Arabia, King Faisal, publicly repeated an accusation accusing the Jews of killing non-Jews and drinking their blood. South America, there has been a rise of fascist neo-Nazi parties, groups that wear modified versions of swastikas. Argentina, in the last decades, the Israeli embassy was bombed, 29 people were killed. Then a Jewish center in Buenos Aires killed 86 people. Nobody was ever punished, and the evidence all disappeared. Northwest America, groups calling themselves Aryan, white Aryan, Nazi, neo-Nazi, who write against blacks and write against the Jewish people. They accuse the Jews of not even being in the Bible. They say, well, Jesus wasn't Jewish. The Jews today aren't the same. All crazy. We've even had them handing them in the old building, handing leaflets, white Aryans handing leaflets outside the building. It means you're doing something right. If you got them protesting you, you're doing something right. Louis Farrakhan, leader of the Nation of Islam, hailed by many as a great man, regularly attacks the Jewish people and speaks of them as Satan. Such liberal, quote, Christian organizations as the National Council of Churches, World Council of Churches, which, by the way, have pretty much abandoned the Bible anyway, they regularly condemn one nation, guess which one? Which brings us to the assembly of all nations called the United Nations. The UN Conference on Human Rights, about a week or two before 9/11, the world nations gathered together. Now you'd think that they'd have something to say about all the dictators of the world human rights, well, you know, all the tyrants around the world, but the focus wasn't any of them. They couldn't care less. The focus was just attacking Israel. The whole world focusing on this little thing. Try to find one Muslim nation back in the Middle East where someone Jewish could even speak freely, or anybody could speak freely, but they condemn the one nation where you can. Throughout the world, dictators, people are put in prison, labor camps, even being killed yet they have never been condemned. The Soviet Union killed millions, literally, of its own people, millions. The United Nations condemned them strongly, didn't even condemn them weakly, never had a word about it. Communist China killed millions of its own people. Did the United Nations ever? Never. But the tiny little democracy of Israel has been condemned more than any other nation on the planet. Imagine this. It's been condemned more than every other nation on the planet combined together. Just about 2 weeks ago, very end of November, same time when there was the anniversary of the resolution that brought Israel into existence. On that anniversary, the United Nations passed 6 different condemnations of Israel. One day. 2 of them said Israel has no right to Jerusalem. How many voted against it? Just a small handful. How many were for it? Almost every nation in the world. Not America, thank God. Bringing the total, just this year, there have been 20 condemnations of Israel by the nations of the world.
To find out how you can receive more of Jonathan's teachings, to receive special free gifts, or get in touch, go to hopeoftheworld.org or call toll-free 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's hopeoftheworld.org or call 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's 1-800-937-4821. You can also get more at Jonathan Cahn's Facebook page or write us direct at Hope of the World, Box 1111, Lodi, New Jersey 07644, USA. Hope of the World is dedicated to the goal of spreading God's Word and salvation to every land and people. We do this by spreading the Word throughout the world and sponsoring compassion projects to the most poor and needy around the earth. To get in touch or have a part in God's work, just write to Hope of the World, Box 1111, Lodi, New Jersey 07644, USA. Or go to hopeoftheworld.org or call 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's 1-800-937-4821.